Week 3 of the NFL season is upon us, and I am coming off of another strong performance in Week 2, going 11-5. But just like Week 1, there is a pick or two from last week that I wish I could have back. But all in all, I am satisfied with how things are going so far. 23-9 on the year, which I believe is 71 or 72%. Without further ado, let's get right into the Week 3 predictions. As always, we begin with TNF, and this week TNF features the Giants and the 49ers. The Giants are coming off of an improbable comeback win against the Cardinals, going down 28-7 at the half. And for the 49ers, they are coming off of a win against the Rams in a game that was a lot closer than what I anticipated. As the 49ers, they have had the Rams number in recent memory. And Saquon Barkley, it was projected originally that he would be out for at least 3 weeks. But then things kind of changed a little bit. There was kind of a change in the progression that they were telling us. It could be a game time decision for this game. But if I'm the Giants, I'm honestly keeping Saquon Barkley out of this game on Thursday night. Because I think the 49ers, they're a far more superior team than the Giants. And I think with or without Saquon Barkley, the 49ers will win big. And that's what I'm anticipating Thursday night. Titans and Browns. The Titans are coming off of an overtime victory against the Chargers. And I'm going to be upfront about this. I think the Titans are going to win this game. The Titans so far this season, I think, have been underrated. While the Browns, on the other hand, they're coming off of a short week playing on Monday Night Football. And they're coming off of a heartbreaker on Monday night. Not only losing to their division rival, the Steelers, but losing the heart and soul of their team, Nick Chubb, for the season. And I don't know how the Browns are going to bounce back from this. From not only losing, but losing their heart and soul of the team for the rest of the year. Losing their best player. I really don't think they do this week. I think the Titans, I think they have momentum from winning last week, and I think it really bounces over to next week, and they win this game and pull off the upset. Up next, we got the Falcons and the Lions. The Falcons are coming off of a 1-point victory against the Packers, while the Lions are coming off of an overtime heartbreaker to the Seahawks. And I get what you're going to say if I pick the Falcons to win, which I am. I'm picking them to pull off this upset. Is that they're 2-0 because the quarterbacks they have faced are inexperienced in Bryce Young and Jordan Love, and inexperienced quarterbacks don't do well on the road. I get that. But a big reason why they won last week against the Packers is they took advantage of some injuries the Packers had. And I think that they do it again this week against the Lions, as Dave Montgomery is currently injured, as is C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And I think those two injuries, I think will be enough for them to pull off this upset and advance to 3-0. They've been running the ball really well so far this season. Bijan Robinson is proving why he is a generational talent and deserving of the hype that he's getting. And I think the Falcons, I think they run the ball really well again in this game. And I think they will advance to 3-0. As their defense is also been underrated so far this season. The defense already looks better than it has the last handful of years. Saints and Packers. The Saints coming off of that Monday night victory against the Panthers, while the Packers are coming off of the 1-point loss against the Falcons, which I just mentioned. The status of Aaron Jones is unknown for this game. He sat out in the game last week. I think the Saints, however, I think they're an underrated team. I think they're flying under the radar so far this season. Derek Carr, I think, is the quarterback the Saints have been needing for a while. And I think the Saints, I think they go to 3-0. I think the NFC South, I think, is very underrated this season. I think the NFC South has that potential of having that breakout kind of like what the NFC East did last season, where everybody criticized the NFC East being easy. But then last season, we saw how good the NFC East was, and I think this season it could be the NFC South. So I'm picking the Saints to go on the road to Lambeau and pulling off this upset. I think the Saints just have the playmakers to win this matchup in a very low-scoring game compared to the Packers. Also, Christian Watson for the Packers, his status is unknown at this time as well, and he has not played in the first 2 games of the year. Broncos and Dolphins. The Broncos offensively, they had a very strong game, but their defense, not so much, which was very surprising. I did not expect the Commanders and Broncos last week to be high scoring, but that was the case. The Dolphins are coming off of a Sunday night victory against the Patriots on the road, and the Dolphins play their first home game of the year. And I think with the 2-0 start, with how solid Tua has been, well, he was great in week 1, but week 2, he did just enough to get the Dolphins the victory. And I think with them being at home for the first time this season, their crowd's going to be pumped up. They're going to be amped, knowing their Dolphins are 2-0. I think they improved to 3-0. And I think this is going to be a very back and forth game. I'm going to say it's high scoring, as I think both offenses have what it takes to make this a offensive affair. But I think in the end, though, the Dolphins defense will make a play and rise to the occasion, and the Broncos will very shockingly fall to 0-3, in my opinion, as I would have never expected the Broncos, coached by Sean Payton, to start off the year 0-3. And speaking of 0-3, Chargers and Vikings. For one of these teams, when it's all said and done on Sunday, will be starting the season 0-3. And these were both playoff teams last season. I think just like the Broncos and Dolphins, this is going to be a high-scoring game. I would not be surprised if this was the highest scoring game of the week, as both these teams offensively look very strong to start the year. Defensively, not so much. I expect this game to be in the 30s, maybe even the 40s. I think that's how bad both these defenses have been to start the year so far. But for the Chargers, what is the status of Austin Eckler? Austin Eckler did not play last week against the Titans, and the Chargers ended up losing by 1 possession once again. The Chargers are infamous for losing 1 possession games. While the Vikings, even though their first 2 losses of the year were by 1 possession, I can trust them more to win a 1 possession game than the Chargers, as that is what I anticipate this game's going to be, a 1 possession game. And I think it's that kind of game where whoever has the ball last is going to win it, and I'm going with the Vikings. Patriots and Jets. And right away, I do think in this matchup, both of these defenses will be able to hold their own in this matchup, as we have seen them do it already this season. The Patriots last week against the Dolphins, a high-powered Dolphins offense, and in week 1, we saw the Jets hold their own against a high-powered Bills offense. But am I predicting a low-scoring game for this matchup? No, I'm not, because I thought that last week against the Commanders and Broncos, and we all saw how that one turned out. But I'm going to go with the Patriots. I think despite the loss last week to the Dolphins, I do think it could be considered a morale victory. And the Patriots aren't the type of team to take morale victories into consideration. But I think this time they can, because the Jets, in their first game, losing Aaron Rodgers for the year, they were embarrassed by the Cowboys. And I don't know how the Jets are going to bounce back from this, at least offensively, as they do have a strong running game in Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. But I just like the Patriots to at least bounce back better this week than the Jets. Bills and Commanders. And I am sensing a trap game for the Bills. I'm anticipating this is a game where we're all expecting, or at least the majority of us are expecting the Bills to win this game but then the Commanders pull the rug out from underneath most of us and pull off the upset. I really could see that happening. I would not be surprised if it did. But I just think last week's performance for the Bills, in what was a get-right game against the Raiders, to win in dominant fashion, to shut down Josh Jacobs, to where everybody listening to this video had more rushing yards than he did last week. I just think that the Bills, I think they're back and they're confident, and I think they win this matchup. The Commanders, they looked strong last week offensively. I think Sam Howell is the guy for Washington, but I don't know if he's there yet to compete with a strong team like the Bills. As we've seen in the past, the Commanders pull off stunning upsets, but I don't think they're going to pull this one off. I like the Bills, but I'm thinking this could be a game where the Commanders potentially cover, but I don't think they win outright. But I'd not be surprised if they did, but I just can't see it. Texans and Jaguars. The Texans really let me down last week. I had them slated to win that game against the Colts, and Anthony Richardson exited the game early with a concussion, but they still could not come back and win that game. While the Jaguars, they're coming off of an abysmal performance offensively against the Chiefs, but I think the Jaguars, I think they bounce back. I think they pick up the win. The Texans, I'm probably not going to pick them to win another game until they can actually win a game. But I will say, though, I do like what the Texans have to offer at this point in their franchise history. As I think C.J. Stroud, he has done fairly well so far, and I think he's got a great core around him, but I just don't know if they're going to win any games anytime soon. Colts and Ravens. For the Colts, Anthony Richardson exited the game last week with a concussion. He's currently in concussion protocol, and I don't think it matters whether if it's Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew under center for the Colts on Sunday. I think the Ravens are going to win this game pretty handily. So I just think the Ravens are a far better team than the Colts, and I think a healthy Lamar Jackson, I think, makes the Ravens a serious contender. Panthers and Seahawks. The Panthers fell to 0-2 last week, losing on Monday Night Football to the Saints in a game where they were in from start to finish, but they just couldn't get it done in the end. And the Seahawks, they're coming off of an overtime victory against the Lions on the road. And now they take on the number one pick in this past April's NFL draft, Bryce Young. Now, they do say that rookie quarterbacks, inexperienced quarterbacks, don't do well on the road. I don't think it applies to a quarterback like Bryce Young. Because Bryce Young, coming from Alabama, he went on the road several times in SEC stadiums. And SEC stadiums are extremely hostile, as the SEC is the toughest division in college football for a reason. And I do get that it's a different game from college football to the NFL. But I don't think Bryce Young is going to be as phased as what maybe some people would think. But I still like the Seahawks in this game, as I just think the Seahawks, they just have momentum from last week, and it carries into this week and in the upcoming weeks as well. Bears and Chiefs, and I'm going to keep this one simple. The Bears fell to 0-2 last week against the Bucs, an underrated Bucs team. While the Chiefs, they got back on the winning track by beating the Jaguars on the road. But it was not to the Chiefs' liking to only win a 17-9 game. They did well defensively, but offensively, they don't look there yet. But I think this is a get-right game for the Chiefs' offense. I anticipate Patrick Mahomes throws at least 4 touchdown passes. Maybe 2 of them go to Travis Kelce. But I anticipate the Chiefs to absolutely dominate this matchup, and the Bears, they fall to 0-3. Cowboys and Cardinals, and another one to keep it simple. The Cowboys, they looked dominant against a Jets defense that is one of the better defenses in the NFL. And the Cardinals, they're coming off of a loss to the Giants in a game where they could have and should have won. And the Cowboys, they go up against a Cardinals team that everyone, or at least most of us, is suspecting that they are tanking. Simple enough for me. I think the Cowboys win this one in dominant fashion. Sunday night football, Steelers and Raiders. And this matchup to me comes down to which team I think is more confident heading into this matchup. And for me, that is the Steelers. Despite the Steelers fans wanting Matt Canada fired, despite the Steelers still looking lackluster offensively, the Steelers, they did have a couple of big plays in the game last week against the Browns. I just think the Raiders being embarrassed last week against the Bills, and the Steelers being a team that's coming off of a victory despite it not being a long week for them, I still think they win a very low-scoring game. I just think both offenses, they are lackluster, but I just think that the Steelers, I think they have more potential in this game offensively than the Raiders, considering the fact that Devontae Adams, his status for the game is questionable at this time. But I don't know if it'll matter too much, as I just think the Steelers are a better team in this matchup, especially defensively. And I think it comes down to defense, and give me the Steelers in that one. Once again, we have two Monday Night Football games this week. Game 1 on Monday night, Eagles and Buccaneers. And even though I've talked about how the Buccaneers are an underrated team, defensively, a strong receiving core, an underrated running back in Rachaad White, a quarterback in Baker Mayfield that I think gets a bad rap. And I think a big reason why he does get a bad rap is because he was selected number 1 overall. And they had all these high expectations for him. I am going with the Eagles. The Eagles coming off a Thursday night game against the Vikings. The majority of the time, when I am picking games that involve a team that played on Thursday night the week prior, I go with the team that played on Thursday night because of the extra rest factor. And especially for this week for the Eagles, as they get more rest than normal, as they get rest on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're going to have 10 days rest going into this game. And I think the Eagles, they win this matchup. Although I do think the Buccaneers, they do have the playmakers to make this a game. I just like the Eagles to come out on top in this game. For the final game in Week 3, Rams and Bengals in a Super Bowl 56 rematch. The status for Joe Burrow is up in the air, as he re-injured his calf in the loss to the Ravens last week. For the Rams, Cooper Kupp is still on the IR, but the Rams are hopeful that he'll be able to return in Week 5. How about Puka Nacua, though? The rookie wide receiver out of BYU, stepping up in the passing game for the Rams these first 2 weeks of the year. And with Joe Burrow's status being up in the air in this game, I am going to take a risk, as I did not want to have a game that I predict determined by if a player plays or not, like I did last week for Chiefs and Jaguars. So I'm going to take a risk and say that Joe Burrow is not going to play in this game on Monday night, and I think the Rams will pull off the upset in the jungle. I think the Bengals' slow start continues. So those are my picks for Week 3. Comment your predictions down below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And enjoy all the football this weekend. The football season is off to an exciting start, and I cannot wait to see what happens this week.